So we want to actually separate permissions in our application, and for this we are going to be using middleware. Okay, so we set middleware as filters, so they're gonna filter what actions a user can take or not. So we'll create a new middleware with a PHP artisan make middleware command. Okay, and the name of this is gonna be admin middleware. Okay, so middleware created successfully, and we'll go into our app directory, http, and in our middleware directory we have an admin.php class that was created for us. So this middleware is very simple. Handle an incoming request. So we receive an incoming request and return the next request. Okay, so if we apply this middleware right now, it's just going to receive the request and tell it to go to the next. Okay, so permit it. But now what we want to do right here, we'll check if the authenticated user has permissions to access a particular route, and if that user doesn't have, we're going to return the user back and tell him you do not have permissions. So this is our middleware. It's simply a class, and when we set up that, we'll register it with our kernel and we'll be able to use it in our application. So let's set up that middleware. So we'll say if we can get the authenticated user using our auth right here. So let's use that auth class. So we'll say use auth right here. So if the authenticated user, and would say admin, because we have that admin field. So if it's true, then we'll be able to return the next request. But right here, we want to check if it's not true. Okay, so if the authenticated user is not an administrator, then we'll set a session and we'll flash, and this is going to be an info. Remember, we have that set up already, and we'll say you do not have permissions to perform this action. Okay, so if the user is not an administrator, set this session and return the user somewhere. So return the user back to wherever he's coming from. And that's all about our middleware. But next we need to register this middleware. Where do we register our middleware? Remember, in our kernel.php. And where are we going to register this? So the applications root middleware groups, we're not going to do that there. And this is a global middleware for all requests. We're not going to go there. And what we're going to do is right here. So this middleware may be assigned to groups or used individually. So we're going to register it right here. So we'll say this is going to be the admin middleware. And that admin middleware is found in our app, http directory and middleware directory. And the name was admin, and we'll specify the specific class right there. Okay, so in our app http middleware directory, we have the admin.php, and that's basically just this namespace right here. Okay, so we've registered that middleware. We should be able to use it. Let's head over to our app.blade, to our web.php, and use this middleware. So first of all, right here we have a route. What we can do is chain a middleware method right here, and we'll say admin. Okay, so this route where we change a user's permissions to administrator would only be accessed by a user that is an administrator. Okay, so now Emily is not an administrator. She's gonna try to make herself an administrator, and let's see if she succeeds. That's from our admin.php. The session does not exist, and that's because we didn't import it. So let's use that. So use session. Okay, so you see, actually for that route, that middleware was called because we registered the middleware and we gave in the name right here. Okay, so that middleware was actually called. Let's go back and we refresh, and let's make Emily an admin. And you see I'm redirected back, and I received a message, you do not have permissions to perform this action. How cool is that? Okay, so she's not an administrator, so she can't actually make anybody an administrator. So we're gonna attach this middleware somewhere else. Okay, I'll show you that in a moment. So we'll go to our users controller, and we'll create the construct for this controller right here. So we'll say public function, and we'll say construct, and we'll inject that middleware right there. So we'll say this middleware, and we'll say admin. So any methods on this controller will not actually be accessed by any user that is not an administrator. So let's go to our home page. So right here we're in our home page, and now let's try to access the users page. You do not have permissions to perform this action. How cool is that? So Emily is not an administrator, so she can't even access the page where we see users. She can't even create a user. She can do nothing of any of these methods that are on this controller. So that's how we use our middleware. And what we can additionally do is actually not display these routes if the user is not an administrator. So let's go to our app.blade.php and do that. So right here we have users and new user. We're gonna say if auth user admin, and if the authenticated user admin field is true, then we'll be able to see those routes. Okay, so right now Emily is not authenticated, or right now Emily is not an administrator, so those fields disappear. But let me log out and log in with my own accounts. So right there I'm gonna have my account, and remember I am default administrator, so I'll log in right there. And I think, okay, I'm supposed to be .me, not .com. Okay, so log in, and I'm logged in. Right there you see I can see the users page, and I can make Emily an administrator, and I can log out and log in with Emily's profile. So Emily, and I'll log in, and right here everything looks great. So Emily is an administrator, and she can go ahead and see users, and she can see herself and remove her permissions. But if she removes her permissions, she's done for, obviously. Okay, so everything looks great. Let's do a little recap. So we created an admin middleware using our make middleware command, and middleware are simply filters. So for each request, we are gonna handle an incoming request, and we're gonna do something. First of all, we check the authenticated user at that moment. Is the user an administrator? If not, set a session and say you do not have permissions, and redirect the user back to wherever he's coming from. Then if this auth check fails, we're just gonna return next. So the next request is gonna be passed. Okay, so now in our users controller we are using, or first of all in our kernel.php app HTTP kernel, we registered that middleware and we called it admin right here. Okay, so after calling that, we actually used middleware controllers. So in the constructor, we injected the middleware right there and said that every single method on this controller should be authenticated by that middleware before being performed. And right there, we see it working perfectly. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.